Hello, this is Dr. Hassan Abdullah with the course Web Applications Programming, and we are at the third topic of the course, which is web application versus a website. And as before, this lecture is based upon and using the supplemental resource, which is easymcq.com forward slash go get. So, what is easymcq.com forward slash go get? It is a learning management system and it facilitates the process of learning, and it has very powerful features, and it is way ahead of the traditional approach of the static slide, which are ancient, which are outdated, which are passive, and which don't serve a lot of purpose in the today's developing world. So these are the six of the features which are shown in front of you, and if you go to the address you will find the videos of using these wonderful features, or you go to YouTube and type my username Dr. Hassan Abdullah. It will take you to my official YouTube channel, and these videos are available there. So I would strongly urge you to watch these videos. And the approach of this course is again ahead of the traditional approach. The approach is question and answer based approach. So the questions are posed to you instead of telling you the title of the topics, which are static. And of course, this is a very powerful feature. This is interactive, it is engaging, and it spurs the process of thought, because thinking is something which we are ahead of the machines, and we should be sharpening out those skills. So all the content is presented in the form of questions and answers. So what are the topics which are covered in this course? Those topics are listed in front of you. And one of these topics, topic number 3, is the web application versus a website. So in this course, we are way ahead of a website. We will be developing web applications, interactive dynamic applications, and which will have a backend database, which will have a layer of logic, and which will have a front end. And all of this, the concepts are presented in the form of questions and answers, which I've presented, which I've mentioned before, and there are 8 of those questions and answers which are listed in front of you. Of course, when we move on to the supplemental website, we will go through each of those questions and answers, and each of them has bullets, each of them has description and have a reference for further reading, and where there is a need, there is a diagram is given to you. So this is just to give you an overview what to expect, so that you are ready and you are all set, and I am also set. And then we move on to the supplemental website, and then we will go through all of these wonderful questions and answers. So we are at the supplemental website, and these are the videos which teach or tell or show how to optimize the learning using this wonderful learning management system. So these are the videos, and this video why the question and answer based approach has been adopted in this course, and how the content coverage and navigation is done efficiently, and so on. So I would strongly suggest you to watch these videos to get the most out of this personalized learning management system. So now we move on to the course of our interest, web applications programming. And the topic of our interest is web application versus a website. So the course is web applications programming. This is not about a website. So you should know what a web application is, and what a website is, and what a web portal is. So so that you can understand the complexity of the problem and the issues. So what is a website? Website is just a collection of pages. They are mostly static pages. A little bit of interactivity can be added using CSS or JavaScript, and make it some animations also. But basically, everything is running on the client, in your smartphone or your tablet or laptop or PC. So it's just a collection of pages, and those pages are hosted on servers. It could be multiple servers, it could be a single server, but that's basically it's static. So accessible via browsers. So whatever we are doing on the web, it is accessible via the browsers also, and they are basically static, they are not dynamic. So let's take a look at more detail. So the technologies which are employed, because this is a technology oriented course, are HTML, okay, and you have CSS for a website, and JavaScript, okay. And of course, there can be there could be some frameworks also. but mostly there's no business logic running on specialized servers. You can have business logic running using JavaScript also, but that has limited capability. So websites can be categorized as static or dynamic, okay? But that limited, okay? This external data is hardly there, and they are not very complex to develop and complex to maintain. So basically, they are a collection of pages, right? And for example, this could be as like home page, product pages, about us pages, or contact information. This may involve certain backend processing, and there are different ways of organizing those pages, okay? From simple informational sites to complex ones also. And they are hosted on servers, and that I've explained to you before also. And sometimes they you might need to have certain features on them also. And there are different types of hosting services which we will discuss on the corresponding section. So they have the shared hosting, and it could be dedicated hosting, and it could be cloud hosting, depending upon the needs, depending upon the traffic, depending upon the security requirement, and so on. And we have the browsers, and we access those websites through the browsers using the domain name that I've already explained in the previous topic. And browsers make basically websites user friendly, okay, by making this like back and forward buttons and boot buttons and bookmarks and search functionality and so on. Well, you can search on a web page using Control F also, but that of course is very limited search. So but websites, as opposed to websites, we have web applications, okay? And those web applications basically they are built using PHP, okay? They are built using PHP and SQL databases, and they may have APIs also. So static or dynamic. So when we in this course, when we say dynamic, it would mean, it would imply that it's a web application, okay? So that's so what is a web application? So web application is an online platform. So online means that what actions you take, okay, their corresponding results are done online. For example, there is an application to say, for example, register, okay? So that's an online platform. So once you fill in the necessary information, submit it through a certain button. So that online platform, okay, ensures that the registration information is entered. It's not like that you submit something through a message or through an email, and that person then enters it. No, you do it yourself. And then is the user interaction. User interaction is that when you enter your registration information and it is submitted, then you get a message on the screen that thank you for registering, and you may also get an email for confirmation. So that is online, and that there is user interaction also. And then there is the backend integration. So what is happening in front of you? A lot of things are happening in the background, which as an end user you are not required to know, but as a web applications programmer you need to know this. And we'll be discussing this, and you'll be doing this, coding this in this course. So whatever you see happening that is integrated, that could be integrated with some other application, which is say maybe with the payment processing system, or that may be integrated with some other information, which is the what you have entered that gets verified, and so on. And of course the content is dynamic. So you may have videos, those videos may change, say for example, based upon the day of the month or the day of the week or the season also, and whatever. And that has cross platform accessibility. So a web applications is essentially an online platform, okay, like Gmail, like online banking of your favorite bank, or where you have opened an account.
and they provide uniform or universal access, which is there for a static website also. And the user interaction it facilitates, okay, which is, and it engages the user through the interface, okay. And there are buttons, there are text fields, there are checkboxes, there are drop down menus, and so on. Now remember that you can have all of these things for a static website also, okay. So you can have it, you can have data, static data inside a static website also, which may be displaying all of this to you, but there is no backend database, okay. There's no back. So it's, say for example, you have certain data which you would not like to share with a certain people with certain privileges, that is hard to implement on a static website. You can do this fairly simply using a web application. So user interacts with the social media web application, and they can post status updates and so on. And so this is basically what this is the level of interaction is there. And then there is the backend integration, right? So for example, a user buys something and adds them to their shopping cart, right? And that is tracked as a matter of fact, and these details are noted, and then the payment is done securely and so on. So dynamic content, I believe now you would have understood what is meant by dynamic content. So for example, if you see as ability to update and display dynamic content, okay, through server side technologies. So basically in a static or in a website, we only have client side scripting, okay. But for a database have to be present, and I'm changing the color here. So for a web application, we have client side scripting and database integration and server side technologies. So all of this is built together in a for a dynamic application to work. And then is the cross platform accessibility. What it means that they are inherently platform independent, okay. So they run on different devices and different operating systems. Of course, for that, certain amount of work needs to be done. It is just not automatic. Don't assume things to be available or done. You have to do the work. So this is a good example of a dynamic versus static website. Now, don't expect that dynamic to be written on the website and static written on the website. So why I have shared this picture, because there was some text here which maybe I did not mention, which was on the face of it, maybe here it was, they seem to be the same. Okay, they seem to be, but that's the only thing common they have. Okay, so on the face of it, they may look same, but if you look closely, okay, that similarity goes off very quickly. Say for example, so for a static website, there is a single image. Okay, for a dynamic website, this can also this could be static also. So you have those images and you can scroll through them. Well, you can have this kind of an implementation over here also, right? But the images would never change. So you when you click on this, you will get the same, say, 5 or 10 images. But here, if you are seeing 5 images, there could be 25 other images which may become visible depending upon the time of the day or from where you are accessing based upon your IP address or whatever. So that's why it's dynamic. Okay, and then you see that there is there's a horizontal scroll bar also, maybe, which performs this some calculations or brings certain images or brings certain text, retrieves it from a database. Remember that there's some videos also here, and these videos you can put a video here also on a static website also. The difference is there, for this video you can perform a search. So you perform a search, maybe this is the submit button, you enter something and you perform a search, and based upon that search you get the corresponding video. So there's a big difference between a static and dynamic website, and there is no concept or the or concept of having a dynamic website without a backend database. So what is a web portal? So a web portal basically is different from a website. It's different from a web application. Some details are here. So what I would be more interested into doing a comparison here, just to give you an idea. So a portal access to various resources at one place. So maybe say for example there's a portal about a certain department of the government. So all the departments or the sub departments which fall under that department, they would have links there, information there, and search in those sub departments, so on. So that's a web portal. And web applications provides interactivity, okay, for perform specific tasks, okay. And interactivity for a portal is medium to high, okay. And this is highly interactive and highly task focused, okay. So for example, there is a web application which allows you to add a course or drop a course or apply for scholarship and so on. So this is highly interactive. And content for a portal is aggregated from multiple sources, often dynamic, but by web application by definition is dynamic also, is dynamic. And so you see that we have student portals, employee portals, patient portals, but here this is task specific. Okay, so online banking, email clients, e-commerce platforms, student registration system. Authentication typically required to access personalized content almost always. Okay, for certain tasks, highly personalized. Maybe have some customization. Okay, but task specific and so on. Data handling for a portal is limited data processing, more content delivery, more of the static nature. And this web application is built using frameworks to provide lot of heavy data processing. There is a database at the end and the database engine also and so on. So this is the so now what are the major differences between a website and a web application? So functionality is there. Okay, the function so high level of functionality in a web application. Website is more or less static. User interaction, highly interactive. A web application. Uh, Maybe there is interaction for a website, but that is limited. It's very complex because so many things are happening and so many users are there and activity is happening. It's just not passive. Technology stack is very different for a web application, and if not always, mostly user authentication in there in web application. So these are the details, and if you're interested, you can go through those details. So let's take a look at what is a website. So for a website, we have that HTTP protocol, which is there also in a web application also. But what we have this JavaScript, right, which provides certain level of interactivity, and we have cascading style sheets, which we'll cover. We'll cover all of this in this course, which provides display and information in a certain way, and that's all about it. Okay. So so the goal is to display information to visitors. All right. And what is a web application that exists on the server? So exists on a server, how to add a course, how to drop a course, how to check your grade and and so you see you cannot put your grades in JavaScript. There's no privacy, no way. Okay, but you can put the grades on a database server which has password access, and then you have a front end which is developed using PHP. A front end not as in the first year, but go through it, and a combination of programming languages and frameworks. Okay, and of course the main goal to interact with the users responses. So in addition to JavaScript and CSS and HTTP protocol, you have MySQL, you have PHP for this course. Okay, and in some other course you may have a different database. You may have a different the logic tier using some different language. It could be Java, it could be ASP, it could be Cold Fusion. Okay, they have all their features. So what are the major differences between website and a web application? More of that. So data processing is hardly there in a web application. Development time is fairly short for a web application. It can be quite complex and time consuming. There's a lot of coding, there's a lot of interactivity, there's a lot of interaction. So the development time is more, and you need to optimize the performance of a web application because there are many users which are in the read and write mode. Okay, read and write mode. We'll talk more about it. And there's a lot of updates and maintenance there. Things are changing, and traffic may be changing, other things, and the offline availability also. So this is the comparison. For example, development time is for a website is relatively quick, and this is fairly time consuming for a web application. The development stack is different, maintenance issues are different. So this is some comparison here. So functionality website informational is just presenting the content, and web application is highly interactive and task oriented, and performance optimization fast loading. So if you can fast loading, it should load fast. But performance for a web application, you are fetching the data, and data is fetched from a server, and that server could be very busy also. Say for example, usually say for example, during the close to the add and drop deadline, right? Or some other time sensitive event, you go to the server and it just hangs. Why? Because of this issue, performance of too many users are there. Okay, read write operations are happening because this is not a database course, because the tables are getting locked, rows are getting locked, databases are getting locked, which is not part of this course. It's a database course. But if you are just viewing something, it does not affect the performance. You're just viewing something. All right. So and then is the offline availability requires internet can work offline using service workers. So I'm not going into a lot of details. So let's move on to the next set of Q&As. So how does a web application differs from a website based upon the functionality? Okay. So dynamic content is there, backend processing is there on a web application. So I had added some, I believe, that we have already covered. So how does a web application differs from in terms of complexity? Okay. So functionality is there. So scalability. Let me show you a picture here which I added. So this is a bank. This is not a bank. This is a queue outside the bank. This is the queue. So I was looking at the scalability. So the more users are outside the bank, right, to go in the bank to get their task done, you need to be able to add more banking personnel, more resources, more machines, and so on. That is scalability. Okay, that is scalability. And so this is so over here is the web application. This is kind of website. So there's a freeway. Okay, there may be hundreds and thousands of vehicles passing by, much more than these people. And these are the billboards. These are just like the static websites, right? So it doesn't matter. 10 cars pass, 10,000 cars pass. Okay, it doesn't matter. The complexity of these boards does not changes. 4 boards or 5 boards, billboards. Here, it's an entirely different story. It's an entirely different thing. I believe you understand. So that is the scalability thing. That is the backend architecture. You have to have a complex setup here. You need to have a building. You need to have security guards. You need to have computers and people and air conditioning and sitting places and so on for these wonderful customers, right? Here, you don't need all of this, right? So there's no backend architecture for a website. There is no user interaction. There's no user interaction. You just go by. There's nothing happening. Here you have to interact to get your job done. So these are very, very different things. Okay, based upon the technology, how does a web application differs from a website based upon the technology? So you have back-end technology, front-end technology. There's no back-end technology on a website. Okay, there is no database integration, and nothing to worry about hosting and deployment. They are fairly straightforward. Okay, so so you need to have deploy for web applications, Amazon Web Services, Google Cloud, or Azure, because you see you have so many people coming to your site, a lot of traffic there, a lot of actions is taking place. All right, so I believe you understand what these differences are, and if you have more questions you can always contact me. So that's all for this topic. Thank you very much.